Hello all, Xyceres here. Just bringing you another base tour. This time it will be of Conetoe. If that name looks familiar, it's because, well, it sounds familiar, you've probably watched the other Conetoe base tour. I actually bought this map because it had the same name, and I was curious what would happen if I put them both on social. This one is a small base, so if you want to try this one, look for the small base, because the other one is a medium. The other things with this one, this is only a 4500 GenMat space. Obviously, I chose it because of the name. I do think you lose quite a bit of GenMats when you choose a 4500, which in turn leads to you spending more synthites to keep them up, so I do not generally recommend it. This one had 150 raid attempts. It was a normal size base that happened to be live during the synthite weekend, which means that it got really high numbers of raids for a few days because people were farming normals, which I do not know if that is actually efficient just yet, but I haven't quite run the numbers yet on that. The kill ratio was 2.4. Note that this was built after the changes to danger rating in the mid-season update. This was built in response to try those out, and a 2.4 would have been good even under the previous ones. And honestly, knowing what I know about the danger rating, I don't feel like it's changed that much. It's just more consistent in how it applies the danger rating, like the things that should have been true are now actually true. The main changes being that the sentry beams and plasma sentinels weren't applying the multiplier for covering area that other traps did, and the traps that were going multiple stages down the traps that were on the Harvey path weren't but started off of the Harvey path weren't always applying their danger rating properly, which is typically how most of the normal maps went up because you typically have at least one trap on the Harvey path. Anyway, for accolades, we've got 165 accolades split between 64 fun, 17 brutal, 27 ingenious, and 57 artistic. So, like most of my outposts, these got fun and artistic. It's just a little pyramid. It's a little bit more interesting on the inside though, and this does mean that I have a 1.1 accolade ratio, which isn't as high as I normally get. Most of my outposts are about 1.3, 1.4, but still good. Anything above 1, I think, is what you can aim for. I don't think you can guarantee any more than that because some people just don't like giving accolades. Especially if they die to something, which some people are also really bad at the game, so there's always going to be someone that dies. Anyway, uh, that is it for this part, so let's jump over into the game. Turns out when you know how to speedrun stuff, it's not hard. Anyway, so this is Conetoe. You'll notice that it is a giant pyramid using a lot of the Scorched Necropolis blocks. I decided on this theme because the original Conetoe, the other Conetoe that I have in my social queue, and that I've done a video on previously, was one of the first maps that I made using the Scorched Necropolis uh, pieces, and I did do something similar with how the more sandstony blocks turn into the gilded ones as at the top of pyramids. Um, it wasn't strictly speaking pyramids, but there were some off to the side, which I I liked, so I just kept it up. So I kept it up here, and yeah, I've got like the grey stone blocks on the ground to stop people from falling underneath. There's nothing under there. There's just I just wanted to block that off so that you know that there's nothing under there, and you can always find the tomb in here. This first little trap setup, we have 2 incinerators, a iron claw that is set to explode and what's that one? That was quick launch. Quick launch because there's not a lot of space here because it'll start because you're heading towards it and it won't hit you to about here because of how the angles work on the claws, so it needs to fire fast if it's going to catch anyone. That's designed so that if someone doesn't deal with it, which you typically do, it's not hard to deal with, they could potentially get pulled through the incinerators. Other than that, like, it might even be more dangerous if I made the second wave, but I think it works pretty well as an entrance thing as well. And what ends up happening is most people because then this is a normal map, these are newer players, they actually had trouble getting in here and like taking these out. This here is just to fill up some capacity, honestly. Similar to that there. I think that's got Hunter on it though, so you can't dodge it quite as easily. Yeah, Hunter Relentless? So you can't dodge or parry it quite as easily. A lot of people had some pretty big difficulty with this, just on the skulls. Yeah, see, decent number of skulls just all around here. But there's also kind of skulls everywhere, although there's a big hot area here, which we'll just go over quickly here. So the actual cube here it does not mean masquerade anymore. I've fixed that problem. Yeah, I fixed that problem. Let's get rid of masquerade on that. I didn't realize I put that on there. So one of the big problem, so yeah, what we've got here, we've got a picture perfect hollow cube, so it's harder to spot, and underneath it is a pulverized piston. Pulverized makes it fire faster. In this particular setup, the piston doesn't fire until after the hollow cube is triggered. Was pulverized fires so quickly, and it will be immediately into its charging up thing. It will basically immediately kill someone, which is part of why you got so many deaths here. It's a pretty standard trap for the pulverized pistons at the moment, so you should be on the lookout for things like that if you are playing the game at the moment. That would... Now, and one thing I will note is this is only for at the moment. I do kind of expect this to be nerfed. I know that pistons used to destroy hollow cubes, so maybe that functionality will come back. But for now, this is quite an effective setup, and it only really works if it's on somewhere where the player has to walk, or can choose to walk. Well, it can't be somewhere where the player has to walk, it has to be somewhere where the player can choose to walk. And you'll note here I've got two paths, path off there, path off there. This is the only hollow cube on the map, and it's right next to bedrock. So it doesn't look anywhere near as suspicious as it would have otherwise. And there's bedrock on both sides, but if you were to stop and think about it, you would notice that that is bedrock, that is not. I should go this way, just in case. The next setup that we've got going on here, you've probably noticed these triangles off the side, and you may have even noticed the enforcers up the end here. So at both edges, or at both corners, I have an enforcer. I believe they're both armored, probably both short leash. They're supposed to like stand on the corner and look down here so they can spot people. The reason for this is a pretty far away spot, so like having an enforcer here, they can shoot down, they can get some pretty good snipes down here. Short leash because they're actually on a platform so they could walk up, but I think it's justified versus putting them on like their own little platforms, which I don't think they need in this case. And it means that I don't have to like expand out my base further than I would like it to be. The reason they are there is they actually trigger these two guards down here who are facing towards each other in case you like kill the guards and then wait for the aggro to reset. These are both Bloodlust and Armored, and what they do, they can walk anywhere down here, and because of these corner blocks, they're able to actually get high enough to actually swing up on the platforms at pretty much every spot. Now, obviously, here they can't, because I needed somewhere to actually place the guard. Here as well, similar idea. So if you're at like this back corners, you could potentially be safe. Although they should just walk around the edge and get to this one and then attack you that way. The I think that this like corner thing where they've got like a little run that they can't get out of may actually be a good way to use the warmongers going forward. You can see here it has been quite effective. I think looking at some of these, you'll notice that there's quite a few warmonger deaths here. Some bolt shots, sorry, because we're directly under a hidden bolt shot. These are all bolt shots. That would be a bolt shot. Oh, that's an enforcer. Bolt shot? Oh, these are the ones for that one back there. There are a few warmonger deaths around here. Though, yeah, there's a few warmonger deaths around, and there's not a lot of bomb traps, which I thought that was more effective than it was. Hmm. I suppose it's not showing all the deaths, because it's only showing 200, and I've got more than that. Yeah, so just behind these pillars, I've got a bolt shot here with Hunter and Double Down. Yeah, Hunter and Double Down. And here I've got a bomb trap. The reason for this is they're hard to spot. This is basically a blind corner because you'll be coming from here. You'll be coming from here. You won't necessarily see it. It's quite a small window to see. You have to be looking up at the roof. And there's quite a lot of threats down on the ground. So a lot of people miss it, obviously. All these bolt shot deaths all can account for that. And then when they trigger it, they just die to it. And that is pretty good for a trap that has no overlapping traps and is only on like a single spot of the Harvey path. Well, I guess that's in this case. In this case, it's not even on the Harvey path. Which is part of the reason this is a bolt trap and that one's a bomb trap. Bomb traps have more threat on the Harvey path. Just behind here, we've got another hollow cube. I believe, is picture perfect. Yeah. This should be fairly obvious, but once again, newer players, so you catch out a few people, they'll like come in here, like immediately turn around, and then just get killed by that. It's pretty effective for how lower cost it is. It's the only reason it's really there. There's also one bolt trap down here, which is just to protect the tomb a little bit. It honestly probably does more harm than good a lot of the time because it can kill the warmongers. But we can also see that it's gotten a few kills in. There's a bolt shot one. There's a bolt shot one. There's a bolt shot one. We can see that it's gotten a few kills from people that have. Typically, if you come from this way and you just don't see it at all, and then it just shoots over and kills you because you were too tunnel visioned on the tomb. As for the decorations, decorations are placed such that the map has a bit of contrast in the level so that the traps don't stand out quite as easily. Now, the colours aren't the best for that, but we've got these light whites right next to this yellow, which makes the yellow look a little bit darker, which means that the brown of the trap is not as noticeable. We've got some red, rusty colours around the entranceways and whatnot. It's a little bit closer to the brown of the traps. Pattern is just using the like temple decals and lighthouse. This is this light, like white at the bottom here, is actually the lighthouse one. It's just designed to make it look more like this is an Egyptian pyramid. Similarly with the decoration pieces, I've got this wings thing that was over the entrance, but it's also around the edges of the map. And there should be one there. Don't know what happened to that. Must have accidentally taken it off at some point. I'll just fix that up now. You'll notice that all the blocks are kind of like turned the same way. So you got like the crosses as you go around the edges here, backed up by the lighter colors, the flat sections at the top here. That was all deliberate, and a little bit of the sandy coloured decal on the bedrock that makes up some of the wall. See, like this is straight up bedrock. And obviously I can't do the crosses on every part, because they're only on one side, so on this side I've sacrificed that a little bit, but I have kept that consistent as well in these little holes. The blue was chosen because it looks kind of like water, and the way I'm picturing this is that this is like water chamber, and that these warmongers are like ancient piranha type things, which I think would make for a good idea for a map where you've got like water passageways that you're like snaking between, and there's like warmongers that are trapped in the water sections that can like reach up using these like cornery blocks, but can't actually get up onto the platform without attacking. And it's the main reason for using that is to stop the player from being able to step in here, aggro a guard, and walk back and just deal with the warmongers outside, which is what happens with a lot of warmongers when they're near the entrance of a base. And I wanted to stop that. This was an experiment to try and stop that, and it works very well. The only problem I had was because the water section runs straight onto the piston, and I didn't want to make it too obvious that this was a piston by breaking my pattern. So what I've done is I've put this here in the wrong... It's technically in the wrong spot, but it's the right block. It should be facing the other way. And because of that, the warmongers can't actually... Theoretically, they could go in here and go up, but they won't. They'll typically try to stay in the middle of a block, and then they'll get stuck, and then they'll kind of stick here and just kind of look up at you, which means that they don't walk into the pulverized piston and get killed. That's what the masquerade was there for initially, but after I added that block, it's not needed anymore. And it wasn't working super well, because the moment someone cleared the hollow cube by jumping over it, they ran into the piston and died, which was unfortunate. Anyway, that's everything for Conetoe, the second Conetoe. We shall be doing a video on the weekend, I believe. I'm not 100% on this, I'm pretty busy this weekend, but I'm hoping to get out something, and we'll see how that actually goes. But maybe like when I say a video on the weekend, I mean like a more guide type video rather than my builder or raider gameplay stuff. That will be the case. I also hope to soon get out a video for the actual values in resources for each map that you can raid, but that is probably about a week away. We'll see how that goes. Anyway, for now, I shall see you next time.